Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
Welcome to Caribbean Perspective. So glad you can join us. The story that dominates in today's edition for Tuesday, 1st July 2025, and brought to you in association with our friends at Antillean Group. In spite of the unpredictability of the Trump administration, Antigua confident of no travel ban. Details after this important message.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family, yes we do at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Brown confident his country will avoid U.S. travel ban.
Whereas they may have concerns about our CIP program and others in the Caribbean, we've been able to assure them that we operate a very transparent and accountable program, a program that is not a risk to the United States. And even if they, see any particular area in which we can strengthen our program, we are determined to cooperate. In fact, next month we go to Parliament and we'll be making a number of changes to the laws governing CIP. And some of those changes were proposed by the United States. In fact, there's already a consultative mechanism that has been in place for at least 2-3 years. And we are systematically making those changes to reassure the United States that our CIP program is not a risk to them. So from that standpoint, there's no hostility. The relationship would have grown over the years. In fact, I'd say that the relationship between Antigua and Barbuda and the United States is currently at its zenith. And, I just don't see any need for any hostile action or punitive action against Antigua and Barbuda. And that is why I remain absolutely confident that we'll be able to continue to do trade and to travel between Antigua, Barbuda, and the United States.
Police Commissioner in Trinidad and Tobago, Alistair Guevara, announced that his officers will be allowed to keep their weapons while off duty. TV6 News has more.
Decision today to call for all of the firearm users license applications for 2025 that have not yet expired past 6 months. So if you have an application and it is not going past the 6 months, I will entertain that application for a decision. I'm not saying whether or not nay or nay, for a decision. The reason why I'm using, and I would like the public to understand, that 6-month barrier is that one of the, or several of the criteria for getting a firearm user's license, one of them is a certificate of character. And that is only valid for 6 months. So having an invalid certificate of character, we can't go forward. We have medical certificates, psychometric evaluations, and also letters from your spouses. So a lot can change in half a year. So we need to get that updated. So me calling for all of the firearm applications for the first 6 months of this year would keep within that remit and that policy directive that I gave today to have those dealt with quickly. What I'm advising the public is that all the applications which would have had items of requirements that would have been older than 6 months, to kindly put yourself in order to have them updated as soon as possible. So what I will do, I will have the firearm permit section send these applications back out to the divisions for to be updated, and then they would return to me for the purpose of a decision on whether it should be granted or not. All right? The second part of that, I can't be arming the members of the public and not treat with my own officers. So I want to talk to my officers this evening and say to you, you have not been left behind. Yesterday, I would have visited the armory and I would have called for an audit of all the idle and serviceable pistols. And it is my intention to institute an off-duty firearm policy where I will be arming all of my frontline tactical and operational officers so that they, in the past, you treat with a criminal and he would often tell you, you have to sign off yours. Well, let me tell you, my officers have to sign off their guns again.
Commissioner Guevara said at the moment there are 55,000 applicants and the TTPS will be putting out a release in the media with all the requirements necessary to apply for the gun license. He gave the assurance that the current process for assessing applications is quite adequate.
In the Senate on Friday, it was revealed that World Bank expressed concern over Trinidad and Tobago's operation, and monthly overdraft is currently over $8 billion, or just 80% of the allotted threshold. Urvashitawari Rupnarayan of TV6 News reports.
Planning, Economic Affairs and Development Minister Kennedy Swarat Singh told the Upper House during his meeting with the World Bank 1 month ago, concern was expressed.
The World Bank expressed concerns with the country's operations and sought clarification on procedures for state engagement.
Swarat Singh visited Washington around May 15th, where he held meetings with both the IDB and the World Bank on behalf of the government.
The visit was as a request of the Prime Minister, primarily to reset Trinidad and Tobago's development agenda and strengthen the relationship with the World Bank Group and the Inter-American Development Bank.
The World Bank Group then came to TNT for a 4-day visit.
The purpose of the visit was to re-engage key multilateral development partners, the World Bank Group and the Inter-American Development Bank Group, with a view to advise them of the new strategic direction for economic transformation. The discussions were centered on presenting the government's economic reset agenda, which aims to reposition the government as an enabler and a regulator and crowd in private sector investment for the development of non-energy revenue generation activities.
He said both institutions responded positively and expressed strong interest in supporting this government's transformation.
Our partners recognize the new trajectory and momentum to drive meaningful progress. It is particularly encouraging that this renewed engagement has occurred early in our term and in the term of this government, setting a promising tone for closer collaboration moving forward.
While answering oral questions in the Senate, Minister Swarat Singh said aside from the $2 billion bond on the domestic capital market for fiscal support for this year, issued in May, there have been no external borrowings by the government. When quizzed about the monthly overdraft, the minister explained.
The maximum advances allowed shall not exceed 20% of the estimates of annual revenue as per the parliamentary approved budget. For example, the maximum advances for fiscal year 2024-2025 is $10,844,800,000. This represents 20% of the estimated annual revenue of $54 billion.
He then proceeded to give a breakdown for 2025 thus far, which steadily increased from 40% of the maximum allowed amount in January to just shy of 80% in June. But the minister proposed what he said was a feasible reason.
The former Minister of Finance had deliberately underfunded critical expenditure. Mr. President, the former government recognized that their revenue target was going to be substantially less than budgeted, so they simply stopped meeting their obligations. Mr. President, I once again emphasize on behalf of the Ministry of Finance that this was a deliberate action by the then Minister of Finance as statistical conmanship.
Swarat Singh says it gives a false narrative, leaving the state in hundreds of millions of dollars in arrears, which his government must now settle. The minister says the overdraft will be continually challenged, and when the government assumed duties on May 5th this year, the net overdraft stood at $8,257,000, or 76% of maximum advances. Urvashitawari Rupnarayan, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
In association with our friends at
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
the opposition Free National Movement in the Bahamas names 16 candidates for general election. More in this ZNS News item.
Therese Bootle, North Abaco. Omar Isaacs, West Grand Bahama and Bimini. Brian Brown, Golden Isles. Philippa Kelly, Central and South Eleuthera. Dr. Nicholas Fox, Fox Hill. Jeremy Sweeting, Central and South Abaco. Arinthia Komolafi, Carmichael. Michael Folks, Golden Gates. Ricky Mackey, North Eleuthera. Jacqueline Penn Knowles, Marathon. Carlton Bowleg, North Anderson, the Berry Islands. Ellsworth Johnson, Yamacraw. Darren Henfield, South Beach. Adrian White, St. Anne's. Kwesi Thompson, East Grand Bahama. Deborah Moxie, Exuma and Ragged Island. And Marvin Dames, Mount Moriah. These are the candidates that will vie for parliamentary seats on behalf of the Free National Movement. Party leader, the Honorable Michael Pintard, utilizes strategy, giving a vote of confidence to candidates who, for the most part, were born and bred or live in the constituencies they hope to represent.
We're here to say change is here, and this unstoppable change will take this country back island by island, constituency by constituency, street by street.
Mr. Pintard said that although there is progress in the country, the current administration still has not adequately addressed poverty and crime.
For all we have accomplished, the truth of the matter is far too many people are moving 2 times a year, because they can't afford where they are and they're struggling to find something cheaper. Sometimes 2 and 3 families are sharing the same house, and yet this government has not been able to devise a program robust enough to meet the demand for many people who are looking for stability. Yes, we've accomplished a lot, but the system is broken, where we can't find politicians who have the will to deal with the immigration matter and who don't recognize that we have a crime crisis. That's why we bring these candidates to you, because they will make a difference.
17 candidates, 1 mission. They say that mission is to usher in a new chapter in nation building in the Bahamas, led by the Free National Movement. For the Bahamas Tonight, I'm Felicity Darville.
In the meantime, the Bahamas goes deep into exploring the versatility of cannabis. Details ahead in this ZNS comprehensive report.
Well, the plant that gets you high. Cannabis has long been stigmatized as such, but it really doesn't have to be. Just ask the people who've taken it for medicinal purposes, like in the case of insomnia, anxiety, and depression. And as others have found out, it doesn't have to be smoked. Apart from edibles, gummies, and foods, there are now cannabis-infused beverages. Meantime, transdermal cannabis patches are still being investigated in clinical trials. A mouthful from a woman who uses cannabis as treatment for painful nerve damage after learning she's allergic to prescription medicine. Canadian cannabis expert Anno Solomon also assisted the Davis administration with drafting legislation for cannabis.
Dosage is really important. This is one thing, is if the product is being made properly with proper formulation and the chemistry, you're going to have proper dosages. And that's a big thing, is when people are just making products and they're not using any type of regulation or standardization, this is when it becomes, you hear the stories about, oh, someone gave me a brownie and I was so sick on the floor.
Right.
And again, so that's the lack of education, lack of awareness, and improper dosing. So back home, I offer like community seminars, workshops, school awareness, things like that. So that way we can help educate people who normally wouldn't think to use cannabis. Senior citizens come to me all the time and they're like, how do I use cannabis?
The Cannabis Authority, tasked with developing policies, procedures, and guidelines to establish and regulate cannabis for medicinal, scientific, and religious use here in the Bahamas, has been allocated $400,000 in the 2025-2026 budget.
You bring a cannabis industry to a new country, obviously there's going to be lots of jobs. That's great. That's a given. We're always going to have the jobs. But why not reach out to the universities? Why not start teaching proper university programs on the beginnings from cultivation to quality assurance to business to the import to the export, from start to finish? If somebody's interested in being in this industry, offer accredited university programs that will teach them everything they want with world-class experts coming in to teach your people. Keep that knowledge within your country as well.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily regional news and more, in association with our friends at Antillian Group.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's a service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.